Hello and welcome to another episode of The Really Show. I'm your host, Aaron Ross. Today's show, Manifest Thievery. Hey, if you like the show, we'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe. I'm sure many of us are aware of the American Revolution and how we won our independence and our lands from the British. Well, it was the Native American lands, but that's another episode. And many of us can probably remember the story of the Louisiana Purchase. But many Americans are probably not as familiar with how the United States acquired its lands in the West and Southwest. That all happened mostly because of one man, James K. Polk, the 11th President of the United States. It was a bit of a fluke that Polk even got the nomination. Former President Martin Van Buren was originally the Democratic favorite in the election of 1844. But because he didn't favor bringing the Republic of Texas into the Union, his popularity significantly diminished and he lost the party's nomination. Instead, the nomination went surprisingly to James Polk, who was pro-westward expansion. You know, manifest destiny BS. This kind of rhetoric won him the election. Polk had some serious goals which he touted during his campaign. At one time, Mexico extended from the Oregon border all the way to Guatemala. Polk wanted to acquire California, Nevada, Texas, Utah, and most of New Mexico and Arizona. He also had his eyes on the Pacific Northwest territories, which would comprise Washington State and Oregon, as long as blah, 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 Montana. You get it. You know what I'm talking about. As well as parts of Montana, Colorado, Oklahoma, Wyoming, and Kansas. The only problem was that two other countries had claims on those lands. Britain had shared claims with the U.S. in the Pacific Northwest, and Mexico laid claims to lands from California on down through Texas. Although Texas ownership was disputed. Polk was a little guy with a big attitude. His campaign slogan of 54-40 or fight. What the heck did I just say? His campaign slogan of 54-40 or fight was a direct threat to Britain's claims on the territories. 54-40 is in reference to the longitude and latitude boundary lines of Oregon. This was a big risk, considering Britain's naval superiority still at the time. Polk would have compromised if Britain pushed back, but instead of fighting, Britain proposed splitting Oregon at the 49th parallel. Polk agreed to the compromise, and the conflict was avoided. The real trouble started in Texas. A few years before Polk got into office, Texas fought for its freedom from Mexico. Basically, Mexico allowed white men to buy land in Texas, and they farmed the land and eventually said we should be independent. You know, remember the Alamo. So Texas became a republic. Mexico didn't recognize the republic because they still thought it belonged to them. So forward a few years to soon after Polk was elected, and then Texas was admitted to the Union. It probably would have been admitted to the U.S. sooner, but there was a whole slave state, free state balancing thing, and the fact that Mexico claimed it would go to war with the U.S. if it ever brought Texas into the Union. Though enraged, Mexico did not declare war. Now, there was also a dispute as to where the southwest border of Texas was. Mexico claimed the Nueces River was the border which speared them farther north, while the Texas-U.S. claim was the Rio Grande, which put it farther south. And it is widely believed that President Polk took full advantage of this dispute. Polk, lusting to gain the lands in the West, sent as a representative Congressman John Slidell to Mexico to offer payment of $30 million. In exchange for the Texas boundary of the Rio Grande, the New Mexico territories, and California. Mexico, still outraged over Texas, could not believe the gall of the U.S. with this insulting offer and refused to even see Congressman Slidell. After learning of Mexico's refusal to sell, Polk sent troops headed by Zachary Rough and Ready Taylor into the disputed area, hoping to incite an altercation. And that's just what happened. Mexico saw this as a hostile army on Mexican soil, and shots were fired. 16 Americans were killed in the skirmish. After President Polk received word that the Mexican army had fired upon Taylor's soldiers, Polk appeared before Congress and declared that Mexico had invaded the United States and, quote, shed American blood on American soil. Congress passed its declaration of war by an overwhelming majority. President Polk got his war. Why would Polk want a war? Well, to force Mexico to sell, like a big bully shaking down a smaller kid for his lunch money. He was hoping Mexico would soon give in and sell, but they did not. Battle after battle, the U.S. advanced, but Mexico didn't give in. Bam, right there, baby. Come on. It is interesting to note that with General Zachary Taylor's public popularity increasing with each victory, perhaps President Polk, fearing someone else getting credit for gains won during the war, soon assigned General Winfield Scott to lead the army. When Scott arrived on the scene and assumed command, he took most of General Taylor's best troops, leaving Taylor only with a small number of inexperienced soldiers. Also important to note, this was the first battle experience for West Point graduates Robert E. Lee, Ulysses S. Grant, and George McClellan. Polk gave Taylor orders to stay put, but Taylor went out looking for battles anyways. Taylor did do battle with Mexican General Santa Anna, but their battle was a draw since Santa Anna had to take his troops away to more pressing matters. Mexico fought hard, but they were unable to hold off the U.S. forces. After landing in Veracruz in 1847, General Scott became the first American officer to lead an invasion of a foreign capital when he took Mexico City in September of that year. With the fall of the capital and the resignation of Santa Anna, there was some confusion and delay in the negotiations to the end of the war. President Polk sent Nicholas Trist as his executive agent to negotiate. His negotiations were with a special commission representing the collapsed government. After much deliberation, they finally signed the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo on February 2nd, 1848, basically forcing Mexico to sell its country's lands for $15 million. The Mexicans should have built the wall first. Wah, wah. It is important to acknowledge the opposition to this endeavor. John Quincy Adams, Abraham Lincoln, Frederick Douglass were just a few. Of significant importance, Henry David Thoreau's classic essay, Civil Disobedience, emerged out of his experience of his opposition to the Mexican-American War. Boom! That's our show for today. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comments area. Keep expansion. Keep it going. Who knows about that? How did that ever happen?